This video is going to be about danger and opportunity, specifically as it relates to the climate crisis. Remember as you watch it that we live in a single, multi-form, emerging energy event called the universe. And that, within this place, everything exists in potential, before it ever becomes manifest in form. Crises are generally viewed as dangerous, expensive, and detracting from other agendas and priorities. However, a look back in history illustrates that crises and extreme threats can be useful for directing individuals, a country, and even the world to a solution. As President Kennedy suggested, out of crises can emerge new and incredible opportunities, particularly if traditional approaches and paradigms are questioned and challenged. During a crisis, incentives and motivations change, potentially leading to new cooperative behaviors and even to the creation of new systems or structures. Crises can get the collective adrenaline flowing, focusing minds to solve the problem at hand. Benefits of past crises. A look back in history quickly reveals numerous ways that crises have offered unexpected benefits for societies, countries, and humanity. Rapid problem solving and innovation. Plato is credited for coining the phrase, "Necessity is the mother of invention," and often a crisis acts as the forcing mechanism to compel expeditious innovation, leading to rapid advances in technology, policy, and/or procedures. Deepwater horizon. In 2010, the Deepwater Horizon rig exploded and collapsed in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, unleashing the largest single oil spill in history. This 87-day uncontrolled release of crude oil from the seafloor, over a mile underwater, created an unprecedented problem and an environmental disaster. At the time of the incident, no technology or mechanism existed to contain it. The capping stack, that ultimately brought the release under control, as well as the ability to install it at such great water depth, was developed on the fly, over a few months. This technology is now incorporated as a contingency for deep water drilling operations across the globe. Increased resiliency for the next event. The measures taken to survive and eventually end a crisis often make an organization or country stronger and more resilient for future events. Asian debt crisis 1997–1998. The Asian financial crisis plunged the affected countries into deep recessions, rapidly increasing unemployment, poverty, and social dislocation. Although devastating for these countries and peoples, especially Indonesia and Thailand, the Asian debt crisis provided valuable financial lessons that would stand Asia in good stead for the global crisis a decade later. Today, many economists agree that the fundamentals of the Asian economies are better than they were in 1997. Among other reforms, Asian economies have built up their foreign exchange reserves as a buffer. Most have current account surpluses, and many have allowed their exchange rates to float. New levels of cooperation, even among rivals. Large-scale crises that challenge multiple interests and equities have a way of pulling together diverse partners, allies and rivals alike, to solve the crisis. If nurtured, these relationships then can be parlayed into cooperation in other areas. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. Iraqi President Saddam Hussein, heavily in debt from his war with Iran, invaded neighboring Kuwait in August 1990, claiming it as his 19th province. Recognizing this as a violation of sovereignty and a challenge to regional allies, the United States under UN auspices built and led an unprecedented, multinational coalition of 32 partners, including the United Kingdom, Russia, Egypt, France, Saudi Arabia, and Syria, to expel Iraqi forces from Kuwait. By January 1991, the coalition had destroyed the Iraqi military, liberated Kuwait, and thwarted Saddam's aims to bring Israel into the conflict and split the coalition. This hallmark of international cooperation, including between the United States and Russia shortly after the end of the Cold War, stands today as the model for successful coalition operations. Furthermore, the Madrid Peace Conference, following the invasion, laid the groundwork for all Middle East-related peace processes attempted since 1991. Systemic change. Global crises that crush existing orders and overturn long-held norms, especially extended, large-scale wars, can pave the way for new systems, structures, and values to emerge and take hold. Without such devastation to existing systems and practices, leaders and populations are generally resistant to major changes and to giving up some of their sovereignty to new organizations or rules. 30 Years' War. In a Europe torn apart and exhausted by 30 years of religious strife, horrific atrocities, and war, participants negotiated the Peace of Westphalia over 5 years. Under the terms of the peace settlement, a number of countries received territories or were confirmed in their sovereignty over previously held territories. It also marked the first time complex geopolitical disputes had legal means rather than a default to warfare for conflict resolution. Similarly, the devastation of World War II paved the way for the birth of the United Nations and Bretton Woods institutions, and the 2008 global financial crisis led the major economies to come together to form the G20. Dramatic policy shifts. Sometimes the fear generated from a crisis and corresponding public outcry enables and even forces leaders to make bold and often difficult policy moves, even in countries not involved in or affected by the crisis. Fukushima meltdown. A massive tsunami hit the northeast coast of Japan in March 2011, causing 4 of the 6 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima plant to release radiation into the atmosphere and ocean. Following the Fukushima nuclear disaster, German Chancellor Merkel quickly reversed her position on nuclear energy and surprisingly announced that Germany would gradually shut down all nuclear power plants by 2022. 8 of Germany's 17 plants were closed almost immediately, and Germany launched a long-term plan to make itself independent of both nuclear energy and coal. By 2016, renewables made up almost 30% of Germany's gross energy production, and nuclear energy as a percentage of gross energy production dropped from about 23% in 2010 to 13.1% in 2016. Emergence of talent. A crisis has a way of letting the cream rise to the top. In the midst of a crisis, those with the right skill sets and talent, even if they are not the identified leaders or top performers, have a way of rising to meet the challenge, creating a dynamic that enables the entire team or group to grow closer and work better together. The 1999 St. Louis Rams pro football player Kurt Warner was cut from the Green Bay Packers in 1994 and took the only job he could, bagging groceries for $5.50 per hour at a local store in Iowa. He then spent the next 3 seasons as an undrafted football player in the B-rated Arena Football and NFL Europe leagues. In 1999, the St. Louis Rams returned from a last-place, 4-12, finish to start their season in crisis. Their starting quarterback, Trent Green, tore his ACL during a preseason game, and they were looking down the barrel of another disastrous season. Newly minted, second-string quarterback Kurt Warner answered the call that season, throwing for 4,353 yards, 41 touchdown passes, and winning 13 games. Then he won the Super Bowl by attempting 45 passes without an interception and throwing 2 touchdowns for a record 414 yards. Kurt Warner went from supermarket to Super Bowl MVP, and the Rams, a mediocre team at best, coalesced around their unexpected leader to rise to the challenge and beat the odds to transform into world champions. So what does this have to do with the climate crisis? Just this. If we want to survive the climate crisis, and hand our planet off to our children and grandchildren in a form worth living on, we shall need to see the situation with new eyes, and use the danger to empower ourselves to find new innovations that work for the benefit of all life. If we will do this, individually and collectively, we will write a new success story for ourselves and for planet Earth. Danger and opportunity. It's a new way of thinking about the climate crisis we now all face. Love shift. Working together, we can make a difference.